So this is the Serious Games. So this is a disaster preparedness and disaster simulation. We are bringing different communities today that are the most impacted, of course, communities of color, low-income communities, migrant communities, who are always, impacted by different disasters. But today we're going to be talking about natural disasters that, of course, are being exacerbated by climate change. And so we're going to come together, we're going to go through a simulation, have breakout sessions, have a panel, and the whole purpose of this event is for communities to come up with their own solutions, and for other experts to listen to the community and help them get there where they need to be prepared and resilient for disasters.
So when you talk about games, people are thinking about kind of electronic board games and see things explode and fly by and stuff like that. Help people understand how this will be a little bit different from...
Sure. So it's actually more of a mental game, actually. So there's neighborhood breakout sessions, and so the neighborhoods are going to be given disaster scenarios that intensify. So the whole purpose is for them to kind of feel mentally, right, what it looks like to be in a disaster, and then start coming up with solutions, start identifying gaps, needs, who are the key players. So it's very much to get the community to form a plan as disaster is happening. So as I said, they're going to be given what is called injects. So it's like basically like newsletters, and just giving them different scenarios.
Many people still have not gotten to a place of normalcy nearly a year later. And still, we have many with leaky roofs that haven't been fixed. But in that moment, we saw organizations and neighborhoods and strangers and neighbors and friends come together to serve each other and acknowledge the strong bond our communities have, and to prove that we are more successful when we all thrive and support each other versus being afraid and divided. Thank you. And now, a year later, we come back together again to include communities whose voices are often left out of the decision-making process for disaster planning, and yet too often are the ones that truly never recover. So thank you to the organizations who showed up for Irma, and thank you to the organizations that are showing up today, and thank you for your commitment to building collective power for the common good that shows that people have decision-making power over public resources. Can I get a loud, a warm welcome and applause to Q Latinx? Florida Student Power Network, show up. Sunrise Florida, Farm Workers Association, Jobs with Justice, Faith in Florida, Hope Community Center, Let Your Voice Be Heard, Florida Immigrant Coalition, Latino Justice, Passionate Heart Ministries, Episcopal Office of Latino Assistance, and Orlando DSA. And finally, I stand here in awe of the communities that have gathered here today to take back our freedom to be supported when we fall on hard times, like the aftermath of natural disasters. Point Siena! Where are you at? Sanford! Orla Vista! Buenaventura Lakes! Meadowwoods! Oak Ridge! Holden Heights! Conway! Azalea Park! Kissimmee! South Apopka! East Altamont! Pine Hills! Hiawassee! And here in the heart of Paramore. I believe this program will lead to the liberation of working class communities impacted by disasters, because it is being led by those same strong, interdependent communities. And I believe that we will win.
Problems that we're facing is that scientists are telling us that 3 times as much ice has melted in this year than in previous years. But there's good news. Our brothers and sisters from Puerto Rico are beginning to settle in, but there's still significant housing problems. in some ways, the trend isn't looking good. More people are coming to Central Florida, and we still do not have the housing that's necessary. And because there's marginal housing, there's even bigger problems with the fact that we've got more mosquitoes than we've had in past years, because the flooding is beginning to get worse. And the temperature is getting warmer, and that means that mosquitoes with diseases that were only found in the tropics are now coming into Florida. So we're seeing instances of dengue fever, as well as chikungunya, and also Zika and some other diseases that weren't here in the past. So all of you now have a newsletter in front of you, and the facilitators should begin the discussions. What are we going to do about the challenges that you see in front of you now?
So you saying this elderly facility did not have
They didn't have, they were out of power, so that shut off the elevators. They didn't have emergency generators, so they were found. So I would think that the elderly community, especially those places that house elderly community, would have emergency generators or some type of assistance to get the elderly from off the top floor.
Mention real quick. We have a rumor. Yeah, so Category 4 storm it's real. It hits West Florida, but we are having a rumor that there is massive homelessness crisis that's growing, and we've got many people moving into Orlando that are living in their cars, and that are and there's increased flooding, and it looks like it's going to grow exponentially.
For a lot of years. So we don't have like a lot of opportunities. People like me, I'm millennial, I have my degree. I don't have opportunities over there right now at the moment. There's no employment opportunities, good employment opportunities, and they don't pay well. So after the hurricane, I lost my job. I had two jobs over there. I was an administrative director of an acting academy, and I was working in a radio station. So I lost my two jobs because I can't reopen the acting academy after the hurricane because we were without power. And without power, how can you bring services? And at that moment, buy electric plant is what I mean? There's no electric plant after the hurricane, and the one that begin to, I don't know how to explain that in English. Some companies had like a couple of electric generators over there, but they were more expensive after the hurricane, more expensive. So people can buy them, and when you are in a disaster like that without food, because in the supermarket you went to the supermarket and all the supermarket were empty, like nothing. So it's important to have a lot of food in your house, water, oh my god, because when a disaster came, you can be without water like 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 weeks.
So what is the lesson that we ought to get from that Puerto Rico experience? If there's a lesson that people can learn from that?
First of all, we need to have a good plan, a logistic plan for the government. The first thing is the government. In our houses, we need to be prepared because we cannot wait for the government to help us. We need to be prepared. We need to have a lot of food, a lot of water. Whatever you think is ridiculous, have it, because when you're in a disaster like that without access, when you don't have the access to get things like today, it's so easy to go to a pharmacy or to a supermarket and buy water, but in a disaster like that, we don't have access to communication.